the fight for the right to fight. Our commemoration today of the racial integration of the armed forces makes us reflect on how far we have come toward living up to our founding ideals, and yet how much remains to be done. President Truman's Executive Order 9981 was an important statement and an important first step. It had to overcome stiff institutional resistance, as deeply entrenched attitudes were hard to change. Despite many difficulties and periods of tension, ensuing decades proved the fears of the early naysayers to be unfounded, as Black and white Americans trained, served, and fought together with honor and distinction. And they do so today in a military that puts merit and integrity above all.
In the words of Frederick Douglass, which were uttered during the Civil War, and I quote, "Once the black man get upon his person the brass letter U.S., let him get an eagle on his button and a musket on his shoulder and bullets in his pocket. There is no power on earth that can deny that he has earned the right of citizenship." In spite of these prolific and I dare say accurate words, our nation continued to struggle with the proper utilization of people of color in the defense of our country. It was not until President Truman signed Executive Order 99881 on July 26, 1948, did this country finally, and I hope permanently, commit itself to Frederick Douglass's admonition.
Progress for many didn't come overnight, but it has come. That progress stretched far beyond our armed forces. It planted the seeds of integration that sped throughout our nation in the years that followed. Charlie Rangel's service in Korea. It created a new army of young men and women who cherished their equality overseas and refused to tolerate segregation when they returned home. So today we pause, as we should, to celebrate the far-reaching legacy of the African-American soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, Merchant Marines who have proudly worn the uniform of the United States, and those who proudly wear it today.
The American story is filled with paradoxes, but none more tragic than the tale of African Americans who fought for our nation at a time when our nation was not fighting for them. We must not only acknowledge this injustice today, but rededicate ourselves to redeeming our Constitution's promise of equal rights for every American. When called on their country to serve, African Americans did so with courage, honor, and distinction, just as many do today. When called by conscience to serve the civil rights movement, they provided indispensable moral leadership, defended liberty, and defined America for the better.
We know from our preamble that all men were created equal, but this was not the belief adhered to in the United States military in World War II. But we are here today in a desegregated America. I never dreamed I would go back to Italy in 2000 to see a monument built to the 92nd Buffalo Division at Colonna in northern Italy. Nor did I think I'd take part in a movie, Miracle at St. Anna, a novel by James McBride, directed by Spike Lee. But here I stand today in our capital's rotunda. And I look back and remember those days that went and those men who went before me. And some of them still lie in graves in Italy. The only question I have, what took us so long, America, to live up to our creed?
President Truman signing the executive order 60 years ago to desegregate the military makes him, in my opinion, one of the greatest presidents of the 20th century. This act led to the beginning of the civil rights movement and eventually civil rights for the whole country. There are 4 generations of Moors who have served in the armed forces from my generation, of my brother, my sister, and me, through my son, my nephew, and my grandson. We have all served this nation, sometimes in segregated units, and now today in integrated units. And to learn more about this history, you can find our records in the Library of Congress.
We must never forget what went before. As we celebrate 9981, as we celebrate all that has been achieved in the 60 years since 9981, as we celebrate all of the distinguished officers who are here present representing every part of the American mosaic, we must never forget, we must never let our children forget, we must never let future generations forget the sacrifice that was made by so many people. We must never let them forget our history, because it is our history that informs our present and gives us a vision to the future. And that history is a mixed one. Glorious valor on the part of African Americans throughout our military experience, but segregation, racism, Jim Crowism, all of that is part of our history. And we can teach our youngsters that history and at the same time say to them, look where we are now. Look where we have come.